Oh, guess what I didn't do? I thought that got turned on. Maybe it is turned on. I don't know. We'll set. Is that turned on? Nope. I thought you turned it on. I asked you to turn it on.
Yes, and the lights turned on. I think it was operator error. Sorry.
I let you use the remote one time. All right. I'm on a roll here lately. All right. Let's see. Announcements. There's a welcome announcement for Dally Bell, who is the new daughter of Chase and Janae Settle, born July 31st. So congratulations to Rich and Vicky. Rich and Vicky have made their way now to Vermont, I think, to see Vicky's mother. So they're out of town for a while. We'll have an ice cream social coming up on Saturday, September 6th. And a meal along with that hadn't been quite planned out yet, but the main part is the ice cream. So if you're an ice cream maker, plan on making ice cream. And then a baby shower for Lindsay Porter, Sunday, September 14th at 2 p.m. for the ladies. So some things coming up to take note of. Any other announcements we need to make tonight? Okay, song number 230. 230. 230. Worthy art thou. Worthy of praises, Christ our Redeemer, worthy of glory, honor, and power, worthy of all our soul's adoration, worthy art thou, worthy art thou, worthy of riches, blessings, and honor, worthy of wisdom, glory, and power, worthy of earth and heaven's thanksgiving, worthy art thou, worthy art thou. Lift up the voice in praise and devotion, saints of all earth before him should bow, angels in heaven worship him, saying, worthy art thou, worthy art thou, worthy of riches, blessings, and honor, worthy of wisdom, glory, and power, worthy of earth and heaven's thanksgiving, worthy art thou, worthy art thou. Lord, may we come before thee with singing, filled with thy spirit, wisdom, and power. May we ascribe thee glory and honor. Worthy art thou, worthy art thou, worthy of riches, blessings, and honor, worthy of wisdom, glory, and power, worthy of earth and heaven's thanksgiving, worthy art thou, worthy art thou.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we're so thankful that we can be here tonight. Help us as we study your word, that we learn from it, we apply it to our lives so that we can serve you better. Dear Lord, you are worthy of glory and honor. Help us to do that with everything that we do. Dear Lord, be with those that can't be with us tonight because of sickness or travel. Dear Lord, watch over them. Help them to feel better. Help them return home safely. Dear Lord, we have those that are of this body that are sick. that are healing from surgeries. Watch over them and help them to get better. Dear Lord, we thank you for all the blessings that you give us in this life. This we pray through your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Uh-oh. Wrong mic. Do I have the right mic? Check. Seem to. Well, we've got, I'm down to 8 days. Counting today, I guess, so really 7 days. Week from tomorrow, I have to go back to school.
You sound thrilled.
Aren't you all very sad for me that I have to actually go back to work? All you who have been working the whole time and not had a long break? Okay. I'll quit trying to drum up sympathy. But it's good. I went and I won't say I did any work in my classroom today, but I did go sit in my classroom for a while today. Just trying to catch the vibe. It wasn't there.
It wasn't there.
It wasn't there yet, so I'll go back and sit in there again another day, in a day or two, and maybe the vibe will catch me then.
Was it at home when you went home?
The recliner was vibing real nice when I went home. Yeah, that I'm in tune with. So, but it's good. I love teaching. I love my students, but I sure love summer break too. So, there's got to strike a balance there. All right. So we've been in Judges for a while now, and for the last couple of weeks we've been looking at Gideon. Chapter 6, we got his call. We had his interaction with the angel of the Lord, and some tests that he placed. Or that he requested of the Lord. I'm not quite sure how to say that. Some requests that he made of the Lord to kind of bolster his faith, bolster his confidence in what the Lord was asking him to do. So he offered a sacrifice, and the angel of the Lord touched it with the staff, and it was burned up, and that gave him confidence. And then the Lord, he asked the fleece with. Asked one day that the fleece be dry and the dew be on the ground, and then asked another day that the fleece have the dew on it and the ground be dry, and the Lord gave him both of those. That's like a 48-hour sign.
Uh-huh.
That's a series of signs.
Yeah.
So
Not in that order.
did I say them backwards?
Yeah.
I have a 50-50 chance.
Yeah.
I can never remember which one goes first. But the Lord responds every time he asks him for these signs, and it gives him great confidence as he goes into the battle. In chapter 7, as we got into last week, we saw the army gathered, and we talked about some of the things, and we'll get through. We talked about the Jezreel Valley, and that's where the Amalekites were amassed. We'll have some things to say about that maybe as we move through chapter 8, some things that kind of come out in chapter 8 that we don't know about in chapter 7 ahead of time. But kind of some things maybe about what that experience was like as the Amalekites were camped there in the Jezreel Valley. And we talked about how important that location was. First of all, it's a very fertile agricultural land, but then there's a lot of really important sites that are close by there with Mount Gilboa, Mount Tabor, and Mount Morah, and some of the other places that are where some significant things happen in Israelite history. And so this is in the heart of their land. This isn't just like a raid into an outlying territory. This is it. This is the Amalekites coming in and camping in the very center of what would be an important, very important spot for the Israelite nation. So we talked about the what do you call that thing? The spring of Herod, where the where the army was gathered, and that's where he narrowed it down to his final 300 men. And we talked about that process of winnowing that number down, and whether there's significance in the way that they drank or whether it's just a test of some kind. I am not married to either one of those ideas. It's what happened. So if there was some warrior significance to the way that they drank or didn't drink, then that's okay with me if that's what you want it to be. Or if you don't want it to be, I'm okay with that too. So, so there you go. And then we talked about the kind of the final test. God told Gideon, if you're still afraid, just sneak down and listen to what the soldiers in the Amalekite camp are talking about, or the Midianite camp are talking about. And so he went down there, and what did he hear? He heard two guys talking, and one of them had a dream about the loaf of bread rolling into camp and knocking all the tents down. And the other guy said, I know what that means. That means Gideon's going to come in and destroy us all, which I don't know how you knew that. That seems like a leap to me. If you told me you had a dream about a loaf of bread rolling into your house, I don't know that I would.
You don't have somebody picked out?
I don't know that I would be that discerning, which kind of leads me to think that this was not an isolated incident, that there was a lot of talk going on among the soldiers, that they kind of had some stories about Gideon, that God was blessing a lot of them with visions about what was going to happen. And whether they were all having the same vision and kind of, getting the same interpretation of that vision, that they all were dreaming the same dream, which would be pretty powerful if you had 130 some thousand soldiers and they all start comparing their dreams and they're all having the same dream. That would be kind of interesting. Or maybe they're all having really weird dreams, and for every one of them the meaning is the same. And so either way, that's a very sobering thing for them to experience. And so God was preparing them for the defeat in a way. So God was sowing seeds of doubt with the Midianites the same way that he was sowing seeds of confidence and reassurance with Gideon. And so Gideon's response to that was to bow and worship, which I like that about Gideon. Gideon does some things along the way really, really well. He does a great job sometimes, and sometimes he really messes it up. And we'll see some times when he really messes up coming up. If we don't get to him today, we'll get to him, soon. And then there we go. We're ready, I think, for the battle about to start, aren't we? He tells them what to do. They're supposed to blow the trumpet, break the pitcher, throw the sword, and say, for the Lord and for Gideon. And Johnny, you had a question that I'm ready to answer this time. Well, ask the right one.
Okay.
That last line.
Oh, what name were they using to say the Lord?
So when you read, when you see that name, the Lord, and that's let's see, 7:18. Let me get to the right page here. It's in all. It doesn't copy. When I do the cut and paste into here, it doesn't always keep things the right way, and I don't necessarily fix it. But in your Bibles, it should have all caps, the Lord. So that means a specific thing. You see all caps in your Bible for that word Lord. It means it's that covenant name of God, the name that God gave Abraham, YHWH, that sometimes older translations will use Yahweh or Jehovah. But it's the covenant name. And there's something about that name. That's a song. There's something about that name. But that name was a special name, and that's the name that they're not supposed to, they're not supposed to take any name of God in vain or misuse any name of God, but that name especially is like super special to them. And so in rabbinic tradition, by the time of the New Testament, by the time of the Masoretic period, which extends from the intertestamental period into the New Testament, we've got them never saying that name. Like when they are reading this text in the temple or in the synagogue, they would come to that, and instead of saying the name, the covenant name of God, they would say the name Adonai. They would substitute a different name for God because they don't ever want to misuse the proper name of God. And so the question was, what name did they say? If they're not allowed to say that proper name of God, then is this just what we have written and they actually said a different name? And the best answer is, I don't know. I asked somebody who I thought would know. I emailed a guy that is the head of the Bible department at Freed-Hardeman, and he speaks Hebrew and he does all kinds of stuff that I can't do. And he gave all that information about, by a later period, we know that they would not have said that name. But what did they do in Joshua's day or in Gideon's day during the book of Judges? We just have no idea. They may very well have spoken that name and used in this context where it's used properly and it's used the way God's name should be used. They saw nothing wrong with it. Or maybe they used a different name, even though in their minds they were thinking that covenant name. But they said a different name. So,
yeah. And the word they substitute as Adonai, like you said, is the word Lord. So that's why I think it's regularly recorded as Lord.
Right.
But yeah, whether you're firmly in they definitely said it camp, because it says that's what they said, that's fine. And if you're not, then whatever term they used is one that was unique to the God of Israel. They didn't just use the word for God. They would have used some kind of name that would have been specific to Israel, because that's what everyone was afraid of. That's what they were fearing, that God had given the camp of Midian into the hand of Gideon.
Right.
That's hard to say back to back without sounding the same.
The Midianites were obviously terrified of two things. They were terrified of Israel's God, and they were terrified of Gideon, based on what we see them talking about in the previous verses. And so Gideon, it's no surprise that Gideon has them shout this, because that's what, it wouldn't have made any sense for him to have them shout another name or something else, go army of Israel or something. That's not who they're scared of. They're not scared of the army of Israel. We've been defeating the army of Israel for 7 years now. The army of Israel has not been able to withstand us, but now we're scared of Israel's God and we're scared of Gideon. And so that, it makes sense that Gideon has them shout those terms in the context of what we've read. Okay, thank you, Johnny, for that question. That clears that up really, really well. Your guess is as good as mine. Okay, so Gideon's response, and this is where we're ready for it. Let's jump in with verses 19 through 23.
So Gideon and the 100 men who were with him came to the outskirts of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, when they had just posted the watch, and they blew the trumpets and smashed the pitchers that were in their hands. When the three companies blew the trumpets and broke the pitchers, they held the torches in their left hands and the trumpets in their right hands for blowing, and cried, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon." Each stood in his place around the camp, and all the army ran, crying out as they fled. When they blew 300 trumpets, the Lord set the sword of one against another, even throughout the whole army, and the army fled as far as Bethshittah toward Zereah, as far as the edge of Abel-Maholah by Tabbath. The men of Israel were summoned from Naphtali and Asher and all Manasseh, and they pursued Midian.
Okay, so the start of the middle watch, most likely, by New Testament times there were 4 watches of the night. So saying the middle watch, which one would it be? Because there's 4, but go back further, there were 3 watches of the night. So the middle watch, you take those hours of the nighttime and divide them up, it gets you to right about 10 o'clock. So about 10 p.m. is when this is happening, the start of the middle watch, and they're just getting ready for their guard to change. That's kind of a chaotic time, and most of the guys have been probably in bed for a while. They don't stay up late watching Netflix like we do these days. They probably were asleep much closer to the time that the sun went down. And so you would have had the massive amounts of the army having just bedded down for the night, and the guard was changing. So it's a good time to launch your attack. The route is on. It doesn't take long for things to fall into mass chaos. And even modern day soldiers will talk about, there's you have a battle plan that's only good until the shots are fired. And then once the first shots are fired, the battle plan just kind of, you just kind of keep shooting, right? You just kind of do what you can to win. And this, all they kind of did was surround that camp and break their pitchers and blow the horns and give their shout. And then sounds like they just kind of stood back and watched, and watched the whole thing devolve into chaos, and people came out of their tents and started stabbing one another. They were confused. They were worried about this massive army that they thought was going to come and attack, and so anybody that was moving must be an enemy, and they just launched into attacking one another. And that's how God delivers his people. He lets evil defeat itself in this case. And then it's interesting, as soon as that takes place, as soon as the rout is on, one of the first things that it seems that Gideon does is he sends word for all those troops that he just sent home. You know, if you're too scared and you don't want to go, 22,000 people left. And then for those 10,000 that stayed, if you want to stay and fight, we've got a test for you. And you didn't drink the water right, so it's time for you to go home. So they all leave, but now they're called back. And what a tremendous response that would have been for, why did 22,000 people leave? Because they were afraid of what was going to happen when the battle started. And here the battle has just barely started, and we're already winning to the point that we're ready to start chasing them out of our country, out of our land. That's how fast God has produced a victory for them. And so these people that were afraid have been recalled, and they're going to come back not afraid because they're ready to go into the battle that they know they're going to win. Chuck?
When you read this, you think this happened in just a little bit of time, that same night, but
Yeah.
that couldn't be. That couldn't be because, you recall the troops, and sending messages, and they're pursuing them this
Right.
great distance, you're talking about a period of days.
It's got to cover more time than it takes to read it, for sure. Sometimes, and I fall into that trap sometimes as I read it, like, wow, that didn't take them long to win that battle at all. But I'm sure it did. Even as the army is kind of disintegrating upon itself and they're killing one another, that's going to take some time. There's going to be some sorting things out that are taking place, but it's not going to be a matter of weeks. It's not going to be like a long drawn out affair. In terms of an army destroying itself, it happened about as fast as it could happen. Which, if that's in a matter of a few hours or a few days, that's pretty quick. Which is good. Because this whole thing is supposed to be a demonstration of God's power. And if it takes weeks and weeks, that doesn't instill as much confidence as it going really, really quick. So I think it was a matter of hours, probably that some of these things are taking place. John.
Said is right with the planning of war is all about timing.
Sure.
And years ago, when you didn't have communication like you do today, it was everything. So God had to help tremendously with when He sent the riders or whoever went ahead to tell them to go to the watering holes and try to keep the army to get to them. And the timing was everything.
Right.
This particular battle.
I think you're right. And we'll see in the next section that not only does Gideon send people kind of back, as we're thinking about where the Midianites, I don't have a map for this, but they came up from the south, and so as they're fleeing, they're going back that direction, and the people that Gideon is calling to return are people that would be to the north of that. They would have to come and catch up with where they're going. But he's also going to send word to those that are in their path, and he's creating creating a bigger group than he actually started with, based on what he's going to do in the next section. So that's a really good point, that there's a lot of strategy going on here, and they had to overcome obstacles that that we would take for granted as far as communication and being able to telegraph what we're doing or whatever. They didn't have those options. Yeah. Mr. Sir?
All right. So, I mean, on that note, the other thing is an army doesn't flee very quickly. You know, if you have more than 5 people together, you can't get them to go anywhere fast. And they're not, you know, they're not all riding on horseback, and they're not all just going to willingly leave all of their stuff behind. That's not their goal here. Their goal was to get a bunch of stuff, not lose a bunch of stuff. So I think if you're sending a few riders out or a few runners out even, you're going to send your fastest people out, and they're going to get somewhere a lot faster than a large group of people will. So you know, I think you're right. You know, they have a certain window of time to do this in, and they do it right away. They don't waste any time that they have. Now the confidence is all there, and they're all ready to go for the most part. We'll see a couple people who aren't ready to go. The situation in the Midianite camp is terribly confusing. They're at least one of them is receiving a dream, and at least one of them is ready to say that is our defeat is nigh. So they're all. None of them are in good mental states. They're all believing the enemy's behind every corner. The enemy's ready to crush us. They're ready to come get us. It's like walking through your house at night knowing your dad's ready to scare you when you're little. You know, now my dad's behind every corner. He's not just in one part of the house. He's everywhere. And that's what they're up against mentally. That's what God has prepared them for. That's what the vision he has sent them. So when you have 300 trumpets being blown, and like we discussed previously, not everybody should have a trumpet. Only leaders of people should have trumpets. So you're expecting there's 300 groups advancing on you. The least likely idea to come into your head is that nobody I see is the enemy. You're going to believe that somebody you're seeing is the enemy, and you're going to go fight them. It's the middle of the night. You can't see well at all, and you're going to go fight people, regardless of who they are. You can't see well enough to know that. There's 2 different people groups, the Midianites and Amalekites here, that are kind of mushed together, and there's no way that all of them know each other if there's 135,000 of them. You might know a few people. You might not attack a few of them, but you're going to attack most people because you anticipate that you are in the midst of the enemy and that they're in your midst as well. So they're just, as much as you can logically think, maybe they haven't gotten here yet. When you hear the sounds of people fighting and killing each other, you know they're here. It doesn't matter. That circumvents all of the really good thinking parts of your brain and goes right to the danger assessment parts of your brain. And those don't actually work that great most of the time. Yeah.
Good. All right.
I'm good.
24 and 25.
Gideon sent messengers throughout all the hill country of Ephraim, saying, "Come down against Midian and take the waters before them as far as Beth-barah and the Jordan." So all the men of Ephraim were summoned, and they took the waters as far as Beth-barah and the Jordan. They captured 2 leaders of Midian, Oreb and Zeb, and they killed Oreb at the rock of Oreb, and they killed Zeb at the winepress of Zeb, while they pursued Midian. And they brought the heads of Oreb and Zeb to Gideon from across the Jordan.
Yeah, how convenient is it that those places were named
Very
after the
fortuitous.
people who were about to die there?
It makes it very easy to remember, doesn't it?
Yeah. So
For them.
yeah, I mean, how did they get Oreb to go to the right spot? I think it was named in honor of what happened there, not predictively named. I'm guessing.
I'm sure, and not long after, because who do they think wrote Judges? Samuel?
Yeah, that's speculation on my part, but I think this is pretty good speculation. All right, so as we were just talking a minute ago, you know, when Gideon recalls those that he sent home, most of those were from like Issachar and Zebulun and Naphtali, and those are places that are up north, above where they were at, and this is the Jezreel Valley, kind of in this area where the stuff was happening. So they were recalled from up here. They've got to catch up. They've got to pursue. But he also called from Ephraim, which is down here, and he sent messengers down there saying, "Hey, the fleeing army is coming your way. You need to be ready to capture them. You need to be ready to stop them from fleeing and getting across the Jordan." And so they set up at all the popular places, or all the places where it would have been easy for massive amounts of people to cross the Jordan. They would have set up encampments, and they would have gone down here. And that Beth-barah that's mentioned down here was kind of the southern point and that's kind of as far south as he said you need to go and set up your traps for them, which, by the way, could be the same place that's mentioned in John 1:28, where John the Baptist was baptizing, and it says at Bethany beyond the Jordan in most translations, but some translations do read at Bethbara, and so that very, very likely one of the places where John the Baptist would have been baptizing, and the way the book of John reads could be the place, indicate that it was a place where John baptized Jesus. So just as a point of interest, that's not really connected to this story other than by name. So we have a rousing victory for the home team. It's a rout. Whatever they thought was going to happen, attacking an army of 130-some thousand with 300, and thinking about how that's going to go, it's gone better than anything they could have hoped for, right? I mean, it's gone better than anything they could have dreamed. They've got the victory assured to the point that what's left of that army is trying to flee, and Gideon, with his 300 men, are in pursuit and sending for reinforcements to say, let's finish this off. And so, and calling for them to come and participate in the victory with him. And that word Bethbara just means house of the ford of a river, not the ford of a truck, where you would ford the river. Yeah. Yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, so the foreshadowing a little bit here, that Gideon is doing, he went from being a guy who needed reassured in his confidence somewhat regularly, more often than we see almost anybody else in Scripture, to after this point, he's good. He's all set. This event, like we said, we don't know exactly how long it takes, a couple days, maybe 3 days, to where we get to where we start reading the other stuff. We don't know. It's working. He no longer has fear in him. He is leading the people, not just the 300 men. He's personally leading them, but he's issuing commands throughout all of Israel, and they're being obeyed swiftly. So the promise God gave that you will defeat Gideon as one man is coming true. It's right here. It's happening now. And everyone believes in Gideon that much that they're just willing to listen to him now. The men who were afraid are willing to show up. People who were never summoned before are showing up, and they're being obedient to the guy slaying the army. And that's good. That's what they should be doing. But I think Gideon is going to start taking this the wrong way. I don't think he suddenly decides to veer off into left field later on. I think this is where it's starting, that his leadership and his success are all going to go to his head.
I like it. I think you're exactly right. And the idea that they're getting kind of that taste of success is good for them. If you think about the beginning of the story, they were in hiding. They were protecting what they did. Gideon was threshing his wheat in a wine press to keep it hidden from the Amalekites and Midianites. And now he's in open pursuit of the leaders of their army, and very quickly we're going to see that he's in pursuit of their kings as well. So that is a big shift from where we started this story. And it's amazing how success breeds confidence, and then confidence breeds more success. So I mean, he's really building on what God has given him. Okay, let's start chapter 8. Continue with that story, same story. So we've picked out, Gideon is now consumed already 2 chapters, 6 and 7, and he's going to go through chapter 8, and then we're going to get even some more. I think after that. So here we go. Chapter 8, verses 1 through 3.
Then the men of Ephraim said to him, "What is this thing you have done to us, not calling us when you went to fight against Midian?" And they contended with him vigorously. But he said to them, "What have I done now in comparison with you? Is not the gleaning of the grapes of Ephraim better than the vintage of Abizer? God has given the leaders of Midian, Oreb and Zeb, into your hands. And what was I able to do in comparison with you?" Then their anger toward him subsided when he said that.
So it seems that the men of Ephraim are their initial response here is that they're quite upset with Gideon for not calling them to be a part of the original assault. And remember, we know the backstory here. We know how that original number was pared down from 32,000 down to 300. But here, all these men of Ephraim assume that had they been called, they would have been part of the victory from the very beginning. And they feel like they've been denied something. They've been denied a chance at defending their land. They've been denied a chance of being part of the victory to an extent that they would like to be a part of the victory. And so they're feeling slighted. They're feeling disrespected. And Gideon, I think, has a masterful response to what their charge is. He basically gives them the victory. He gives. I know we've seen a bunch of people killed up to this point, but who was it that's responsible for the capture and the death of the two army leaders, Oreb and Zeb? Well, he gives that victory to Ephraim, and so he says, regardless of what you think has happened up to this point, really you've got the glory because you've captured the military leaders. You're the one that, without you, they would have gotten away. And so he gives them that kind of that respect. He gives them that answer. And it made me think of the proverb. I think maybe we thought of the same one. A gentle answer turns away wrath idea. And so Gideon gives that soft answer, and it appeases them. It mollifies them for where they're not upset with him anymore. The last thing you want in the middle of a victory is for your own army to start rebelling against you, and the idea of stealing defeat from the jaws of victory. We're about to win, but if we turn on one another, what's going to happen? And Gideon wants to preserve that victory by not allowing his army to disintegrate. And so he gives a good answer.
Johnny.
But up to this point, this is the first time we see the Israelites actually fighting. Before, it was them fighting themselves. And this is the first time that the Israelites actually were in the battle, and they're the ones that killed these kings.
You would have to think that by this point, some of them have. I mean, in that pursuit, I would assume that they have caught some people before this point. I doubt that Oreb and Zeb were the first two guys they caught in the whole, pursuit. But they've caught people and they've captured people left and right in their pursuit, and they've gotten the leaders as well. So, but I think you're right. This part of the battle, as it moves down into the territory of Ephraim and it moves down to where they're able to kind of take a leading role in this, that's the heaviest part of the fighting that we've seen up to this point for the Israelite army.
And the other thing they might be upset about is the idea of spoils of war. We'll see later that there's been a great deal of spoil to be taken from the bodies of those who've been pursued and slain, and any of them. And Ephraim's probably a little bit upset about that too. Sure. It's not simply glory that they're after. There's a lot of spoils here. These people have been taking from us for 7 years straight. We want to take some back. We want to.
That's my stuff.
Yeah. We want to get what they're wearing off of them because they've been doing that to us. So there's a lot of wealth to be had there on the bodies of these people, especially the ones associated with Ishmaelites.
Yeah, that's good.
I like the gleaning and vintage terminology there. Is not the gleaning of Ephraim. The gleaning was the edges of that which wasn't collected during harvest. That's the little bit of stuff that's kind of left behind. The vintage would have been that which was collected and put to use and made into good wine or whatever. So here we see he's saying, isn't your gleaning that the scraps you picked up is better than everything we did? You got the people who have names. You've got people who are recorded as leaders, and for us later in the biblical account, that is what's left. The Ephraimites get the two guys with names so far. So far, Gideon has, although the sum total is very large for the people that could be accounted to him for slaying, it's always a very, very big deal about who has killed who, especially leaders. We'll see that later with Gideon's son. That's a big deal. And then it's recorded in such a way that it doesn't matter that he tried to resolve it himself. But Again, yeah, we both thought of the idea of a gentle answer here. And in Proverbs 15:1, it says, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. The tongue of the wise makes knowledge acceptable, but the mouth of fools sprouts folly. And we're going to see some people who do not deal nearly as wisely as Gideon here in the near future. They think that they can just kind of say what they want and get what they want, and it does not prove to be so.
All right, verses 4 through 9.
Then Gideon and the 300 men who were with him came to the Jordan and crossed over, weary yet pursuing. He said to the men of Succoth, please give loaves of bread to the people who are following me, for they are weary. And I am pursuing Zebah and Zalmunna, the kings of Midian. The leaders of Succoth said, are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna already in your hands? Are the hands? I thought it was heads, sorry. That we should give you bread to your army? Gideon said, all right, when the Lord has given Zebah and Zalmunna into my hand, then I will thrash your bodies with the thorns of the wilderness and with briars. He went up from there to Penuel and spoke similarly to them. The men of Penuel answered him just as the men of Succoth had answered. So he spoke also to the men of Penuel, saying, when I return safely, I will tear down this tower.
Okay, so there by that number 10, the city of Succoth and Penuel, kind of right here as Gideon is pursuing the army. Evidently, many of them had crossed in this area right here. He's following their tracks, and he's going to catch up with them down here at Karkor. But he's followed them through that region. And Chuck.
Isn't that area, in that part of the original, whenever that 10 tribe, the 12 tribes came in, wasn't this part of the area that was given to the 2.5 tribes?
That's part of the area of Gad, I believe, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so that is because wasn't it Gad and Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh that kept territory on the east side, and so Manasseh's up to the north, and Gad, I believe, is right there in that area. So they are brethren. They are Israelites that Gideon is requesting assistance from. So and it's a simple request. It's a simple request for help. We're chasing down the armies, or the kings of the army that has been antagonizing us, and our men are hungry. So think about what they've been through. And though they may not have, we can speculate about how much battle they've seen up to this point, Gideon and his 300, or did they just kind of observe as this army disintegrates and kills itself? Whichever, they've been up all night. If this is that battle rages through the night and the army disintegrates and they begin fleeing, and now the 300 men and they've pursued them through the night and into the next day, and I don't have a scale on there. I don't think for how far that would be, but it's a good probably 20 or 30 miles that they've pursued them, if not further. Israel is not a very big country, by the way. It's not a huge territory. And so sometimes we look at these and we think, oh, that's like a map of Kansas where that may be 300 or 400 miles. It's not that big. They don't have 300 or 400 miles. They've got 30 or 40 miles is all they've got. And so he may have, this pursuit could have taken place over a night into the next day. Justin.
Well, and you never know along this route, the fleeing Midians, Amalekites, that I guess on this side would have been the whoever's still alive, whoever wasn't killed on that side has been trekking through that area. So, they may have stopped and ransacked this town on their way through.
Right.
And so it may be what Gideon is asking for is whatever you guys have left, take bread from your homes, take the things you are going to feed your family and feed my men with. And the town may have been completely ransacked right before they get there. And this simple request is a simple request, but from them it may be the last of the last. That the Amalekites have already taken almost all that's left. Yeah. And now that we're here, you're asking for that 5% that we've hidden away, that we have for ourselves. Or we know they've been oppressed by the Amalekites before. And I don't know, maybe there wasn't enough time, maybe this pursuit, they would have just passed around the town. But regardless, these people weren't well off. It's not like, oh yeah, I'll give you a little bit of my surplus grain. We've already been raided multiple times and you're asking on top of all of the things that they've already stolen from us.
You make a good point, and I think that's something to take into consideration that they may have been raided, and something I think that we need to consider too. I don't think the Midianite army came up from Midian and snuck all the way up to the land of Israel and camped out in Jezreel and had done nothing up to that point. They didn't just sneak up there and camp out and then decide, okay, now we're going to have a battle. They had been raiding villages and territories all the way up there. They'd been decimating places. So whether or not they may not have raided them on the way out as they're fleeing, but they may very well have raided them on the way in as they were coming in and not left them with much. I think you make a good point that it may be that Gideon is asking not for surplus, but for what you have left. And that's a good point. But I think the way they answer, I think we can wonder about the request and how that was received. But the way they answer is definitely an answer of fear. They respond in fear. You haven't killed them yet. You haven't killed Zeba and Zalmunna. And now you want us to gamble on you being able to get that done. And if you don't get that done, if they kill you and Zeba and Zalmunna find out that we assisted you as you went in pursuit of them, what are they going to do to us when they come back? They're going to destroy our village. They're going to wipe us all out. So no, we're not going to help you because you haven't killed them yet. If you had already killed them, we wouldn't be scared of them anymore. But right now as it is, we're more scared of them than we are eager to help you. And so their answer, I think, is definitely born of fear from both of the cities. And Gideon, though, who early in the story, I think, represents fear and demonstrates fear, and even to the point last week in chapter 7 when God has given him all these signs, and it's the night before the battle, and God says, if you're still afraid, go down and listen to what they're talking about in the camp. And Gideon goes down to listen, which indicates to me he is still afraid. So Gideon has been demonstrating fear up to this point, but now after this taste of victory, after seeing what he's seen, he now has confidence. And so he is not responding to them in fear, he's responding to them with confidence. And he makes this promise to them, when I go kill them, I'm going to come back here and I will remember what you have said. I'll remember what you've done. And you will be disciplined. You will be punished because of your hesitancy in following through on what is right in this case. And so because you've listened to your fear and not listened to, not believed what you've seen, which is we're in pursuit of their army. You saw the army as they came through, 130-some thousand, right? You saw what just came through trying to escape. That wasn't 130,000. That was a much smaller army. You know that we've decimated them. You know that there's not much left. We just have to finish the job. So he, I think, is ready to chastise them for giving in to their fear.
Yeah, so Gideon he's certainly making plans now. He's not wondering about signs. He's not asking the Lord for information. And like we said, his confidence is exceptionally high now. He's not reacting out of fear. Not only is he saying, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and go kill those guys, he's making future plans. He's taking notes for what he's going to come back and do later in order to make sure that everything's cleaned up just the way he wants. I'm going to come back and I'm going to punish the men of this town, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to tear down this tower. The fact that they have a tower, that's probably some kind of stronghold, so maybe they were all hiding in that. I don't know. Maybe that's why in Penuel, where they didn't want to give him anything, may have been hiding in the tower. I don't know. But yeah, I'm going to come tear that down. You're not going to have that anymore when I'm done. Because right now, Gideon and his men, they've been run completely ragged, and they are trying to finish off a problem. If the kings of Midian get away, they can come back eventually. They might not come back next year or the year after that, but they could come back. And this is such an exceptionally critical time for them to get there and complete the task. And men who don't have refreshment have a much harder time fighting. You think of Saul when he's pursuing, and he says that the men can't have any refreshment, and his own son takes it, and the light returns to his eyes, and he's ready to go some more, but no one else is. That's what Gideon's asking for here. He's saying, let us finish the job you want us to do anyway. Give me some bread. Let's let's get this done. I want to kill these people so they can't come back on us ever again. And they are, I think Jason's completely right. They're answering out of fear. They're worried about their own safety, and they're worried about, well, I don't know if you guys can do it. There's not as many of them as there were. You know, we'll see in the next few verses there's 15,000 left, but you're 300 or so. That still is not very good odds, right? And they're making an assessment in the way they definitely shouldn't have. It probably would have been a lot better for them to make peace, give them some bread, and let them walk away. That would have been a lot easier on them.
And healthier in the long run.
Healthier.
In the long run, for sure. Okay, verses 10 through 12.
Now Zebah and Zalmunna were in Karkor, and their armies were with them, about 15,000 men, all who were left of the entire army of the sons of the east. For the fallen were 120,000 swordsmen. Gideon went up by the way of those who lived in tents on the east of Nobah on Yogabah. I don't remember how you said that. And attacking the camp when the camp was unsuspecting. When Zebah and Zalmunna fled, he pursued them and captured the 2 kings of Midian, Zebah and Zalmunna, and routed the whole army.
I forgot to put the map on there, but we saw it just a second ago. So Karkor, just a little bit east and south of where Succoth and Peniel were at. And Gideon pursues, but then he attacks from the east. Well, they weren't pursuing from the east, they were pursuing from the north and the west. And so it's an unexpected attack. And why they decided to stop there, if that was a place they felt like they had a stronghold or a place they felt like they could defend, they weren't expecting the pursuing army to come and do a flanking maneuver around them. And so their defenses would have been set up on that western side where they expected to be attacked from. So it was remember what the angel called Gideon at the very beginning? Valiant warrior. And Gideon has been acting like it. We don't know why he was called that. We don't have record or history of Gideon doing anything warrior-wise before this battle, but Gideon acts like a valiant warrior through this whole exchange once the battle starts and he gets past his fear. He pursues, he launches attacks that are strategic, that are well-timed, that are exactly what they should be to gain the victory. And so Gideon, if he wasn't already, he has grown into that role of what he was called early on when the angel approached him.
So as far as we can tell, the idea that Gideon, the account doesn't indicate that he has any more than the original 300 with him. It'd be hard to catch up with many more than that, because at that point you're moving with comparably sized groups. So it really seems like Gideon has about 300 men versus this 15,000. Perhaps the says it came upon the camp when they were unsuspecting. It's possible a lot of them were asleep or unready. And if they had been able to get in while people were asleep, that's as easy as it gets right there. But either way, we see that God's help is still really coming through here for Gideon. Even if you come on a camp entirely asleep, it'd be hard to get through that many people, because it says they rout the entire army. Only the kings managed to flee very far, it seems. But the difference in force here is, it's basically as bad as 300 versus 135,000. There's no way you overcome a 50-to-1 odds unless God's with you, right? So and I think that really is part of the idea that all the glory is supposed to go to God here. God says he will give them the victory, and God is still giving them the victory. With 300 versus 15,000, they still can't really take the credit for themselves. Gideon is still getting credit, but God has already indicated he wants to give Gideon that credit.
Yeah. John?
The way it reads sounds like this was the actual first battle that the 300 had. The 300 really didn't battle until at the end.
It seems that way. It doesn't seem like at the original attack, if you want to call it that the 300 does much more. I mean, they have a sword in one hand, they have a torch in one hand, and they give their shout. They have a
Torch and
a trumpet. They have a torch in one hand and a trumpet in the other hand, right? And so they blow the trumpet, they give the shout. the army starts killing themselves, and it seems like they kind of allow that to happen. And then as that disintegrates into chaos, then they're able to start giving pursuit. I would imagine that there have been skirmishes. I can't imagine that they've done nothing other than pursue, and there haven't been some that have tried to set traps or fall by the wayside, or groups that got separated from the main body of the army that they haven't chased down. That it seems like 15,000 people escaping this far that successfully is kind of a long shot, but they haven't seen they haven't faced this kind of battle where they've been, the only ones. And who knows, if 15,000 men, they've escaped, they've found a place to camp. They've been running and trying to get away. So if many of them are asleep and then a new battle launches, maybe they got up and started killing each other again. They thought Gideon's here and the same thing over again. There's not many left. I would just like, the number 15,000, I bet it wasn't 15,000 right on the nose. I bet it was, 15,212 or 14,987 or something like that, So, when it says, did handfuls of them escape here and there and make it back home? I bet handfuls of them escaped and made it back home. Would be my reading. But as far as an army surviving, no army survived. They didn't have an army left.
Yeah, it says the whole army was routed, so they've lost functionally all of their men. They've lost the true leaders of the army. They've lost their kings. They're out of luck. They're not coming back. And later on we see that it says Midian bowed their head and did not raise it again. That this was it for them as far as at least Gideon's lifetime is concerned.
Yeah. That's good. We're coming up the last couple of minutes, so let's not start a new section. Any final thoughts or questions, Johnny?
Johnny.
Well, earlier, before they started chasing them, they called for those other armies to come back. And then they met Ephraim and his army down there. Ephraim didn't follow them across the Jordan.
It's possible, but Ephraim,
or they just stayed home.
well, Ephraim, he had set up camps further to the south, and it would seem to me, in my military strategery, what I imagine happening is as the army was fleeing, if they started meeting resistance, it's hard to do this upside down. If they started meeting resistance from pockets of Ephraimites that we know were set up this far south, because that's where he told them to go, it no longer behooves us to go south any further to look for a place to cross, because there's armies there. And so they cross here. So Ephraim may have had, most of their forces may have been further south waiting for those bands to come, and if they've already crossed, that's where Gideon pursues them. So Ephraim may have been a diversion,
A blocking
a blocking force that didn't get involved so much in the pursuit. And then you have those ones that were from the north. They've got to catch up. Gideon's in hot pursuit because he was there. Those other ones that were 10 miles further north, they've got a lot of ground to cover. Yes, sir.
With the Midianite force, when you invade somebody else, you don't just leave everything that you just invaded desolate. You leave posts and you leave units behind so that you can have a supply line, so that you have some sort of route and you can't be just completely blocked off.
That's
so
good.
likely what's happening is the Ephraimites are completely wiping out everything they have left behind. Any stores they have, any other units that are just in reserve, they're coming through and wiping them out to the river, right?
Yeah.
Completely cutting off that land, and once the Midianites realize that, then they cross, right? There's probably no meeting up between Gideon and the Ephraimites until they have this kind of, some of them get to Gideon like, hey, what's going on here at the beginning of chapter 8, right? So there probably wasn't like a battle fought together. It was more likely a pocket of those Ephraimites that hit the multiple locations that they were holding posts, like, hey, where's our benefit?
That's a good point. That supply line that would have been left behind, or posts of Midianites to kind of guard their flank as they as they're advancing further and deeper into Israel, and then they collect them as they move forward, leaving. Okay, we will pick up in, where were we at? 13, 17. 8:13 next week is where we'll start.